serious, but serious fun is going to bring people to the revolution.
I came back from the 2 weeks of meeting Boal there, and I quit my job and I started a theater company.
And then we invite them, but they told for us, no, we cannot play for you. You have to play your own questions.
I think that any movement needs to have spaces and moments of self-reflection.
It's whereby you allow the community to find their way to express what is important to them. At the same time, what we wanted to do is to bring their story not just amongst the community, but bring it out of their community to engage with local Singaporeans.
Politics does not come separately to me. It's theatre as politics, which Boal used to say.
Hello, welcome. I'm Adrian Jackson. I'm Artistic Director of Cardboard Citizens, and I'm very happy to welcome you to another of our fascinating conversations that I've had the privilege to have with theatre makers around the world, particularly theatre makers using the techniques of the theatre of the oppressed. And it's a great privilege this afternoon to welcome Iman Aoun and Edward Muallem, who lead ASHTAR Theatre, which is based in Ramallah. They live in Jerusalem, and I've known Edward. I've met a number of times across the world. More recently, I've met remotely. I've met Iman, and it's a great pleasure to have them here to talk about their work. So welcome you to come into the room, please.
Hi.
Hey, very nice to see you. Thank you so much for making the time to talk to us. I think you know we've had this wonderful series of conversations with theatre makers from all around the world in all different contexts. And we're interested in all the theatre that they make, not just the theatre of the oppressed, but also where they start from and how they found Boal and how they use Boal. And yes, so why don't we start with what do each of you do in ASHTAR Theatre? What are your official roles, please?
I'm an actor, a trainer, and I do administration too.
Okay, I'm the artistic director of ASHTAR Theatre. We both created ASHTAR back in '91. We're the founders. We both came from the world of theatre making as actors with the Hakawati company before ASHTAR. And at the moment, I change my hats a lot. So I'm an actress, director, as well as the main administrator of the theatre. So
very nice. You're a person of many hats, which sounds important and good. So tell us, you started out in El Hakawati in '91, is that correct? And you were
in '77.
Earlier. 77.
Yeah.
77.
At El Hakawati, ASHTAR at '91.
ASHTAR '91, I'm sorry. So in Hakawati, you were both actors. Tell us about Hakawati and what its particular mission was.
Well, Hakawati stands for storyteller, and the company was looking for their own and new style of how to present the stories of the people and the country, not only to the Palestinians, but also to the world. So they took it upon themselves to really spread the life. It was important really to tell the stories of the people to the world, and it was difficult also to be accepted as Palestinians at that time, because being a Palestinian and saying it out loud that we are Palestinians was quite problematic, and you would go to jail for it.
I mean, Hakawati was at that time like the premier Palestinian company telling those stories. Is that correct?
It was the first professional theater company there were other companies, but they were more amateur-based companies, and so yeah, Hakawati was quite the first to be an established organization.
And what kind of stories were you telling with Hakawati at that time?
Around identity, around the aspirations and the loss of the land, but also the aspiration of a better life, and about it was
Identity.
yeah, identity, autocritical look at the Palestinian society, and try to really say that we need to improve ourselves in order to improve our situation. And this is probably that was the link that we have taken as two people coming from that philosophy into ASHTAR's establishment, where we believe that to free our country, we need first of all to free ourselves. And so and so that's how, like, the chain or the line, the thread had been leading us.
The journey went, and so that's very interesting, because of course you know that Augusto tells these sort of epiphanies of each moment in his journey when one form of theatre doesn't seem to be adequate, so he feels the need to invent another. Was that also your process in forming ASHTAR? Because I hope I'm right in ASHTAR was making theatre already before it was making theatre of the oppressed. It was also already making it its own theatre, so it didn't necessarily start as a TO company. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. When we started in 91, we were coming to life in order to bring a new answer, let's say, for a void at that moment for our young people, because no one used to teach theater for in Palestine before. I'm sorry, my computer is doing all
Sorry,
these.
I'm glad it's your noise that's happening, because I was panicking and thinking it's my noise. Okay,
No.
now I feel okay.
Now we know.
So what was it that Hakawati, I mean, obviously it was a very distinguished theatre company, an important international theatre company, but what was it that it was not doing that you felt the need to start doing?
No, it's when we left the theater, El Hakawati, that we built, so we like split into 3 companies. Me and Iman, we thought that we want to continue because Francois, the director, he asked us to go with him to Europe and work there. Me and Iman, we decided no, that we want to stay in Palestine and we want to train the new generation how to be theater makers. That's why we started ASHTAR in Jerusalem in 91. Francois, he went to Europe and he was doing plays there and coming back to Palestine to perform, which we did not want to do at that time.
So that is one of the essential binary choices as a Palestinian theatre maker. You have stay or go. Yes, I mean, can you make work abroad because you can make work more easily there, perhaps more safely, or make work at home? And yeah, that's a frightening set of choices which you're just given to begin with. I get that.
But it was also the time straight after the First Intifada, and the situation was really critical in Palestine, and that's why Francois have chosen to be in France, because it was easier to, as you said, to really produce and be able to move freely within Europe in order to generate money as well for the productions, because as you probably know or don't, we in Palestine, we don't have we don't have support for culture that comes from our ministries or from the government. Or
we had to live from our work.
Yeah, very good. I mean, I'll come to the boring but necessary question of money and support at some point. But that's very interesting. So you then started ASHTAR, was first of all about growing theatre makers, young theatre makers, particularly in Palestine, with a view to them telling their own stories. Was that the principle?
Yes, of course, with the view also to freedom and to give them a new perception also for their future, for their possibilities, for self-confidence. As I said, we were coming out from Intifada, and the young people had lost their education for 3 years in a row. Many young people were in a state of either despair or closed horizon, and so the theater was coming to answer a question of identity and of possibilities.
Yeah.
I never want to make the assumption that audiences, particularly younger people, necessarily know everything that's happening in every country. So perhaps it would be useful for you to just describe the First Intifada and what that meant.
Well, First Intifada erupted in September 80.
December 97.
The 9th of December 87. And it was the confrontation of the unarmed young people and older people with the army, with the state terror, if you want, from the Israeli occupation, who were really shooting and killing and destroying
houses.
Yeah. Exactly. So the people revolted in the streets using the least possible means by throwing stones. And it was from that moment where the stone became like a symbol for our revolution against oppression. And so, but there were many curfews and many close downs, and that's why it was quite an intense and difficult time for the young generation in particular.
So it was an uprising which lasted how long, Iman? How long? And it must have been terribly traumatic for those young people, every day virtually having those confrontations in the street and such an uneven confrontation. How long was that period, the First Intifada?
4 years.
No.
Well, yeah,
4 to 5 years.
Let's say
until the Oslo agreements.
And until Madrid conference
right.
in 93 and then or 92 it started, and then the Oslo agreement, and then everything took a different shape.
So a lot of your work at that time, and presumably still, was about working with trauma, with young people seriously traumatized by events.
Let me put it this way. There's no Palestinian that is not traumatized. So we're not working only on the trauma. We're working on assertion of who we are on this ground, of a sense of wise belonging, of an importance of staying agile, alert, of the possibility that that we can create if we have the means to do it. Mm-hmm. And because we are all somehow controlled by colonial countries, not only Israel, but all the colonial countries are really intervening into the politics of this piece of land. That's why it has been even more difficult and it was a way in for our young people to realize and understand politics at an early age, in order to maintain, if you want, in order to maintain their sanity, maintain their existence, maintain their resistance.
Yeah. I mean, presumably there is no choice in Palestine except to be a political theatre maker, because it's inescapable. I mean, I'm reminded of South Africa in that period when, you know, every theatre maker was political. Of course, in the UK, not every theatre maker would necessarily classify themselves as political, because people can talk about anything they want, but you have no choice. That's very interesting. Let's go to the moment that you encountered Boal. It's been a very interesting moment to talk to, I mean, not Boal necessarily in the flesh, but the work, if you see what I mean. In all the people I've spoken to, there's been this moment when they found the work and decided that discovered that it really filled a hole for them. Tell me your moment of that, please.
Yeah, well, it was in '97 when we did the first production. Let me tell you that we were afraid really to do a forum theater, because we were afraid that people will not interact with us. At that time, the director, who was a Swiss, he said, well, I have been here for like 6-7 years, and I see that your people are very warm, are very hot, and I'm sure that they will intervene. We said, okay, let's do it. And that was the beginning, when we did a play about youth and about
Beauty contest.
Yes, beauty contest.
The right to choose for women.
Yeah. So, and the actors in that show were the graduates of ASHTAR at that time, who trained with us. And I
graduates of your school, of your
program.
Effectively a drama school.
Yeah.
And it is a fully developed course, isn't it? I mean, it's a proper full-time school.
No. It's an extracurricular program for 4 years.
But it spans 4 years, and it has particular points. So it's not just a sort of drop-in youth theatre. It's quite carefully calibrated. Yeah.
Yes.
So sorry, I interrupted you, Edward.
Yeah. So we did at that time that play, and I was playing with the students, the graduates. I was playing the oppressor at that time, and we did that play that we wrote, the team with the director. We devised, and then we started touring with this show.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you that it was big success. We did not really imagine how was the reaction of the people, and we did about 40 to 50 shows. So the idea for us was that we move from the city of Ramallah to the places where people have no theaters, where people, they cannot move and come to Ramallah at that time. So we said, instead of them coming to ASHTAR will go to these areas and start to perform. So we went to refugee.
You didn't have to worry about them intervening. They intervened.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. In one of the shows in Tulkarem city, one of the we were performing in a summer camp for youth as university students, and in the middle of the show, one girl, she said, I want to come on stage and to intervene, yeah, to play the oppressed as the girl. And she went to the kitchen and she brought a knife and she went into the stage and she wanted to kill me with the knife. At that moment, the Joker stopped the show. He said, stop. And he said, please, it's not allowed to use any accessories that are not on the stage. So she had to move this knife from her hand and start to intervene with me. And that time it was like a law that at ASHTAR, that when we perform, we say to the audience, one of the rules, you are not allowed to use any accessories outside of the stage if you want to intervene with the actors.
Interesting rule. I mean, it reminds me of Boal's big woman story, the famous story of the big woman who intervenes and picks up the broom and attacks her husband. Similarly, you discover the power of theatre to move people in the moment. Almost too much power. Yeah. So that was your first piece, and it went very, very well. And then I think you invited Barbara, is that correct, to come and work with you, to Barbara Santos to teach?
Yeah, we decided to continue after the big success of the play. We decided to continue, and we had a show in 89 and in 90, and then we had Barbara, and then we had Mojisola coming before Barbara.
Mojisola came before Barbara, I should say. Mojisola Adebayo, who's a very old friend of mine, who was my first associate director at Kabul Citizens and a really significant theatre maker. She came before Barbara, and she made with you, if we're going to do things chronologically, which perhaps we should, she made a piece of theatre which you toured for a long time. Did she make it at that time?
The story of Muna was
no.
Barbara, not Mojisola. But you mean 48 minutes in Palestine.
48 minutes. She made that then, or that was that much later?
No, later, much later.
Okay. Okay. So we'll go chronologically. So Barbara and the story of Muna.
But let me first put something between brackets about the first performance, because the first performance, when we have seen the impact of the style, because before we entered the any forum theater experience on the ground, I personally, because I studied sociology, social work. Through reading, I read about Boal and in connection to psychodrama. So I knew a little bit of the theory, but never on the ground. So when we tried this particular first play, it was the impact on the society that drove us really to continue. But what we did, we have made a series of the same character, the same oppressor, with different stories, with the same oppressor, and we called them also
by the year.
Yes, but we called them the stories of or the series of Abu Shakir. Abu Shakir was the name of the oppressor. So this became also interesting for us artistically, because the audience would wait for a new series every year. And that had made the Palestinian audience more aware and more connected to the forum theater methodology.
Very, very interesting and very clever. A sort of pantomime villain. What's he going to do next? Which is so horrible. Your audience must have waited. And was it you every time, Edouard, having to play this incredibly unpleasant character?
I played it all the time.
Yes.
Actually, I think I've seen you play an unpleasant character, and I've seen you enjoy the relish of an evil character. More fun to play. Fascinating. So you would go to the same places with a new installment of Abu Shakir, what he was doing, and the audiences would come, and would they know you from the previous time, and so they know the game now and they prepare?
Yeah, some yes, and we also had a new places where we went in the second day and the third day. Not always at the same places, but we had new places that we toured in, and we introduced the game for them. So after 5 years, people started to know really what is forum theater.
Right. So you save a lot of time at the beginning, then you don't have to sort of explain it so elaborately, and people will just come up because they know and they learn by doing it. Give us a sense of the terrible things Abu Shakir got involved in, please. I'm interested. What forms of oppression did he manage?
It was most of the time he was oppressing the women, the girls. And he was selling the expired food, for instance, one of the shows. In one of the shows, he was selling drugs to young people.
But what usually how we work, we do research. I mean, we spot a problem in our society, and we try to research it. Extensively. We go and meet people, etc. We read, we interview organizations who are working on the subject, and then we bring back all the material, and then we start to improvise. A little bit different than the way we work with the community, because when Barbara came to Palestine and she started to train us as jokers, we started to go into the community and multiply, or not even multiply, but train the groups and work with them directly, raising their voice, and giving them a platform for them to raise their voice.
Sure.
So that was a little bit different than the way we as professional company and ensemble are trying to work, because a big part of our work is also focused on the aesthetics of the work.
So I think you described to me your theatre as resting on a tripod of activities. So one of them is the effectively a kind of drama school for young people which they graduate from. And what is that? A certain amount of evenings a week, and then sometimes weekends. And how does it work?
It's a weekly program for 4 years, but then every summer they do intensively for 2 weeks, very focused. And they take master classes and they do workshops, but also they do productions. So they learn, and then they do production, and then they perform.
What sort of age range?
12 to 24, 22,
12
24.
to 24.
Yeah.
And in terms of productions, would those be at all the whole world stage? Give us a sense of the shows which you've done with them, please.
First year students usually they go with a fable, and this is like primary introductory for them, how to be on stage and what to play. Second year they do usually more intensive scene studies, and they go into mythology and ancient theater. And then the third year they go into international repertoire. This year we are doing Turandot, for example, with them, and
Brecht version of Turandot.
Yes.
Yeah. Which many people probably don't know. I don't think I've ever seen it, actually. It's a more obscure Brecht, but it's the Turandot story seen from his. Describe it a little bit. How does it work?
Well, we have adapted a little bit the text into a contemporary setting, because the play happens in ancient China with the emperor, but we have put it in a setting of a local country that is it talks about capitalism and greed of the powerful people. Always the masses has to suffer, and they have to suffer, and so the head of the country is how do you say is controlling the cotton. So يحتكر, he's controlling he's monopolizing the cotton market for his sake, for himself, and so him and his brother and his people are the only beneficiaries of that good, and then the people are really paying the price, and so it's Turandot, who his daughter, who's trying to understand what is happening, but he brings in a group of media people and press press people in order to change the mindset of the people and accept the fact that he is controlling the market. So by telling lies. And this is exactly what is happening in our life.
So always you are finding a local flavor, if you like, to stories that you're telling. You're reframing things in a place so that they will have a resonance for your audience.
Yes, but also it's not only about our audience, it's quite global, because the problem of capitalism is not only is not in Palestine. I mean, Palestine is it has a teeny tiny problem of that, but look everywhere.
Sure.
And so what we try to do is to give it a local, global local flavor.
A local flavor. A local flavor. So that is, and perhaps it's worth talking. You've been you've assiduously cultivated an internationalist strand to your work from the beginning, maybe partly of necessity and partly because you want those messages out there. Maybe that's also a legacy of your Hakawati experience. You did a few years ago with your young people this remarkable piece called the Gaza Monologues. Tell us about how you, which was verbatim testimonies, as I understand it, from young people growing up in Gaza. Tell us how you multiplied that and how you made all these connections.
Well, first of all, the idea was that the attack on Gaza in 2008, 2009, for 22 days in a row on civilians who didn't own anything to fight back with was massive, and it was distractive and even not. It was destroying to the Palestinians who are not living in Gaza as much as it was in Gaza, because we were like a few kilometers away, not able to do anything for our people. So the idea.
Forgive me for not knowing this, but are you able to travel freely in Gaza, Iman?
No, since '99, we're not able to enter Gaza.
You're not able to enter at all, so you're in the separate.
Or them coming out. I mean, them coming out since 15 years now.
So when you gathered the material for this show, you had to do that remotely.
The idea was to create solidarity among young people of the same age all around the world. So we have, throughout the years, we have a good network of friends and connections. And that's how we started to disseminate the idea and spread the word until we have been able to reach 52 companies in 36 countries around the world. I mean,
all performing texts from.
Or almost
there was a large choice of texts. I think there a number. Not everybody needed to perform. Sorry,
33 of
33,
them.
and each company would choose which ones it wanted to perform. Yeah.
I mean,
fantastic. Huge and wonderful project. Have you documented that in all the different countries?
Absolutely. We have. And then we have invited like one from each country. And of course, those who were able to come, those were not able to come because the age group was also quite like youngish. So some countries were not able to send their young people. But we gathered 22 young people from around the world, and we took them to the UN. Then they also performed there in the name of the Gaza youth. The thing is, and all of that was documented, of course, but now the documentation of such a thing or the spreading of such a thing, the effect of raising the awareness at this level is irreversible, because the atrocities are irreversible as well. In the personal life of the people, but the effect of creating real solidarity among young people who will become or who are becoming, and now probably 10 years later, now they are beautiful, strong young people who are very much engaged in their societies around the world. They still know, they're still, some of them are in contact with us. We have done just a few, last year, 2020, we have done a memory of, we revisited the Gaza Monologues, and we were in connection with different people from around the world who had presented the monologues, and the things that we have heard from these young people were like soul growing or heartwarming. So that was important.
Yeah, and a piece of work like that, was it purely about trying to get young people around the world to understand and empathize with the particular situation of the young people in Gaza, or was there a wider sense of people trying to make connections with their own lives, or whatever?
As theater is, I mean, when you write a play, you write it not for, I mean, as a writer, you just write it because it is important for you to say what you want to say. But then you don't really know what happens in the resonance of your words when X and Y would take the piece and play it. So it's the same thing. We wanted solidarity, but the work had left its mark on
in all different ways. Yeah. Good. So the three, the time is zooming past, as it always does in these interviews. The tripod is the young people.
Yes.
The forum theatre work, which I think we should talk a bit more about in a moment, and the non-forum theatre work, which is still theatre work. And are they roughly equal parts? Is
Almost,
that
yes. Yes, yeah. Because every year we do an international co-production or a local co-production with like a play that is either devised or from the international repertoire, and we tour with it locally and internationally. So that is the professional ensemble work, but the forum theater, we do different kinds of projects underneath. Also, the ensemble creates forum plays, as we said before. We train the community and we work with them, and we produce with them and for them. But we also train internationally. We multiply companies and groups internationally.
It's actually 4 legs your stool has got. I think it's the training is another leg, isn't it? You said it's a tripod. I think it's
yeah. Well,
but I suppose I should ask you to describe. You were telling me about a forum piece, which was an important one for you, without necessarily going into all the detail, which is a very popular one, the Muna, which you taught a lot. Give people a sense of what it was about and why it was important to you in Palestine to make such a piece, please.
It was a strange story. It was a hard story. It was the first time that we tackle such a story in a theater. It was not easy to perform the story of Muna for our audiences. When you talk about early,
why was it not easy? Because it was a taboo subject. Because people don't.
Subject. Yes. It was not easy
because you were speaking about early marriage, particularly.
Yeah. We talk about early marriage, and we're talking about honor killing.
What is called honor killing?
Which is called honor killing.
Yeah, we have the same words here, but it's the words that people use. Yeah.
So
your protagonist was the woman who was at the center of this, and she was a child, a young child. Yes, is that correct? I mean, in the play, she's 13 at the beginning of it. Is that right?
Yes.
Sure.
Listen, sorry. every time.
Go on, please. Go on, please.
Every time there is like political constraints that are engulfing our society, the society like runs within, let's say, or closes its doors, and so social norms become even more closer and more yes. And
so it's even more difficult to have some of these difficult conversations, as it were, about really important stuff. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, what I'm saying is that the people become more frantic if you really talk about anything that has to do with their social norms, or if it is even connected to religion. And there it becomes like a big taboo. I mean, you cannot really get close to anything mistakenly taken from religion. It wouldn't even be right. But the fact that young
as
people
a distortion of a belief. Yeah. And I'm presuming that all these pressures are simply exacerbated by living under occupation, that it's the occupation makes all these other conversations even more difficult to have in a kind of way.
Yeah, I want to say another thing concerning the audiences in this show or other show, which is really when you talk about sensitive issues. When we have, when you talk about early marriage and you have audience only women, they are very open and they speak freely. Really, they say exactly what they want. They can say anything. They can say everything. They can talk loud. But when we had mixed audience, men and women, you could see that most of the time the women only listen and the men are the only people who are talking in some of the shows, and most of the shows mainly, if you have mixed audiences, because women were afraid to talk when there is men with them in the same place discussing a play, talking about early marriage.
You both know our good friend Sanjoy Ganguly, and his experience is very, very similar. I mean, in his work, very often they're working in villages beforehand to, as it were, strengthen women, young women, and make them ready to make that first intervention. Because, of course, once that first intervention is the critical one, and once other people see. Was that played to people of all ages, or particularly young people? And was it played only in Palestine, or you played it elsewhere?
Our audience were varied from 14 to 114. And then we played it also in Jordan and in Calcutta at Sanjoy's festival. Where else we went?
Hong Kong.
We went to Hong Kong with it as well. So it was touring quite well.
We played it in English also.
Yeah.
So we had to play in English.
And your audiences, do they cross the Jewish-Arab divide as well, or are you only touring in parts of Palestine where you're going to get a Palestinian Arab audience?
I wish we could play to our audience inside the villages and like in Israel, but the problem is that most of our people do not have permission to leave the West Bank, and so we are stuck in the West Bank. We both of us are living in Jerusalem, but not all of our company is. So
we cannot tour.
There's so much to talk about and so little time. I need to ask you some of these questions because remember, we do forum theatre and we're supposed to be channeling audiences' questions, not mine. So quickly, sorry, a few of these. There's a question about how you support your work. which is really important and interesting. Everybody wants to understand how theatre makers survive in different countries. How do you survive? Do you receive, Jonathan Mann asks you, do you receive public subsidy or grants? Or is your revenue mainly fees or box office income? And then he's got a question. Yeah, go on, please.
Let's answer the the financial part. All our forum plays are free for the audience. What we do is we try to really find local or international organizations that believe in the political messages that we want to convey, or the social messages that we want to convey. I.e., we have a good partnership with Rosa Luxemburg from Germany, but others as well. So we work with organizations that we are in good term with them on political level, and then we produce what we produce, and then we play to our audience, because we believe that it's a human rights issue to really reach out to every individual in our society, to raise the issues that we raise, and to give them a space to speak up and to intervene.
So your work is it's all free to audiences, including your non-forum work. Is that also? No, that's a paying audience in the regular way.
But the non-forum, I mean, the audience pay only $3 or.
Okay, sure. But it's a mix of foundations. Rosa Luxemburg are an important partner for you, and the Palestinian Authority gives no money towards the arts.
Well, the Palestinian Authority, when they have money from the international donors, then they could channel it to us.
Right.
They don't have money. I mean, no one has money. All our money is being taken even by the Israeli occupation. The money is there, but we don't get it, or we don't get part of it. And then there's other problems within.
And I suppose connected to that is just some quick thing about the structure of the company. You have staff as well as you two, or do you two do everything?
No. We have staff, of course. ASHTAR
mainly teaching staff and administrative staff.
We're 12 people staff.
12 full-time staff. Okay. Yeah. Great.
But also sometimes we become like with part-times or with projects 20, 25, or I mean,
depends on the project. Yeah.
Very good. Jonathan Mann is supplying most of the questions today, but they're good questions. He's asking about the heritage of your writers, actors, and students. And he's saying, do they come to you in Jerusalem? I think I know the answer to this question. Or do you go to Palestine and South Bank? And he's asking what languages you use in the rehearsal room.
We use Arabic in rehearsal room and English. English, because some of our students they go to English schools, so some of
the trainers
and some of our international trainers, they come in, and so English is a very popular language.
I'm going to allow one more Jonathan Mann question, which is because we've talked about it quite a bit in the past few weeks about theatre and healing. There are people in the TO movement who don't put a high premium necessarily on the function of TO in what some people would call healing. But we've spoken already a lot about trauma, national trauma and individual trauma and the relationship. I'm just interested in your thoughts about what effect your work can have on people, including
I would say that all theater is healing. Even a Romeo and Juliet is a healing aspect. So, because theater in itself, if it is done properly, then it is really talking to your emotions, to your soul, and to your mind. And so once you are able to be connected to your inner self truly, then you are healed.
I mean, I'd like to say that all theatre is healing. I've been in some theatre which hasn't healed me at all, but
That's the problem of who you work with.
this happens. But I suppose I'm interested in your trying to articulate why that. I mean, it's easy to say that all theatre is healing, but what does it unlock, and what particularly for, I suppose, particularly for your young people who have grown up in this situation, why does it help them?
Because for us, I mean, when they come really closed row and young and unable to express their inner thoughts and feelings, they see a safe space to grow, to ask questions, and even to find answers. Yes. And also to create a common ground between themselves. Many of our students, they found their different identities within the theater, and they've been taken safely, or they felt safe completely to express what they felt and what they want, or who they are.
I want to add that oppressed people, males or females in Palestine, in their societies, they can't speak. They're not allowed to speak. And they find it that the black box or that stage is the only place where they can talk freely and express their feelings. And they can hear answers, and they can talk, and they can discuss. So that's why it's really very important, forum theater in Palestine, for these people.
Like it is not easy. It is not easy for a young male or a female to touch each other. In many places in Palestine, they come in and they want to be a kilometer away from each other, but then slowly they forget. Like one of the exercises that I use from Theo is the positive and negative magnet.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
That gives them the possibility to close their eyes and leave their body choose, which is an important aspect in itself. Taking away all sorts of walls between themselves, because we have walls inside and we have walls outside.
Yes, I wanted to ask you, I mean, I'm just quickly about how free you are to investigate anything you want to investigate, or how limited you are, or whatever, as theatre makers in all the things happening in Palestine. Are there things you cannot do or talk about? Are there subjects which are also taboo for you, or areas? Or do you feel reasonably, because many people here have a sense of what limitations in different places. We all suffer limitations of our own wherever we are, and they're a variety, and I'm interested in what yours are.
Well, of course, I mean, like you said, every place, it has its own limitations, and the thing is, our limitations, they vary from era to era, time to time, but the fact that we are socially, let's say, a very protective kind of society, because we are always afraid, and fear is the worst enemy, because it really makes the people commit even crimes out of fear, and so that's why you find aggressive men, and because they are afraid, because they themselves are oppressed by the occupation, by the
hierarchy of oppression,
by the hierarchy, yes,
the
exactly,
cascade of oppressions.
Absolutely. And so
from one system, from the colonial system downwards, as it were, absolutely all these things. the violence, the institutionalized violence of it. Yeah, I need to just quickly ask you two more questions because we've only got a few minutes left. Chelsea, who is a member of Cardboard Citizens, is interested in the impact on women watching your play regarding discussing the norms of young marriage. And I suppose I want to follow that up with how much are you able to be aware of change that you are making? Obviously, we can sit in a room and we can see people's faces light up and we can be delighted when people come on stage. We don't always know what happens afterwards. Sometimes, luckily, we do. And if we go back to places, sometimes we do. I wondered if you had any sense of longer term effects in that sense.
I would say one thing that is important. When we started back in 91, people didn't understand or didn't know exactly the effect and the importance of drama in their lives or in their life. So slowly but surely, now everybody wants to do drama. All schools, they want drama in them. Organizations, they are using the drama
as a tool.
Even social theater, and forum theater, because some call it, we do social theater, and it is more like educational theater. So the people have learned from the forum theater, and they have started to use different ways and genre of theater in order to reach out, and we are able to see real difference, at least in the younger generation. But there is a big problem. We live in a turmoil place. Everything that we do, then something comes and really puts us in a whirl, and then we have to start anew somehow.
Yeah.
And that is a challenge. That is a big challenge, because otherwise, I think we could really build systematically, slowly and surely, but we cannot. We cannot say this. And also all the new whether like closed-minded, backwarded approach to life is growing as well. And so society is like going in two different poles. And every time there is more political frustration, as I said before, people are more afraid, and so they close on themselves, and they become more religious and more intact.
We've got about two minutes left, and I suppose I should ask you because it's a title of the series, is what next for Theatre of the Oppressed, and I suppose particularly thinking about what the whole world has just been through, which is COVID, or is going through, and how that is affecting you in Palestine. And also, of course, you've had your nth change of government in Israel. Somebody wanted to know whether you were hopeful about that. So let's talk about now and yeah, I know. I thought that's the look you'd give. Now and the future. Now and the future. Where next for ASHTAR in this world that we're in now?
I think. One thing I would say, technology is important, and I think forum theater should make a leap into technology and use it. Of course,
so we were talking about this the other day. You've been doing, like a number of companies around the world, we've discovered that we can actually do a form of forum and you've been making films effectively.
Yes,
really.
we've
Forum
been
films.
Forum films, and discussing them and showing them to the public. Of course, there is no real forum in terms of taking the place of the people, but at least the protagonist. But the discussion is there. Okay, now it's not. We could debate that, of course, and it would be interesting as a 2O community to debate what how and what the way to really reach a way where you could really use the audience to enter the film and do the interaction, which is great. But we haven't yet, but that's a food for thought, let's say.
A sort of AI forum where people could enter our world with those goggles. Yes. No, I think it'll come. I bet you it'll come. I don't think it'll be as exciting as real people, though. Look, we've come to the end. It's so nice to meet you and spend some time with you. You know, people have so much respect for the work that you're doing in the circumstances that you're doing the work and the importance of the work that you're doing. So thank you so much for sharing with us. Afterwards, we will be leaving up and showing some links for ASHTAR Theatre. They're there as ASHTAR Theatre. They can be found on the web, and more materials there. So please do follow them. I'm echoing a number of comments by saying thank you, Iman and Edward, very much indeed. We'll leave it there. Thank you. Ciao. Ciao.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Right.
Bye.